Welcome to BizTech's Women in Leadership Show. In conjunction with International Women's Day 2023, we bring you a Women in Leadership series where we connect you with some of the most successful female leaders in the Asia-Pacific region to uncover the tenacity of each woman leader and how they've pushed boundaries and risen to the top of their respective industries. Our guest today is Laura Houldsworth. She's the Managing Director, Asia-Pacific at Booking.com. Booking.com's mission is to make things easier for everyone to experience the world. It's a familiar name. It's a name that's associated with travel, but we're going to get Laura to tell us more about Booking.com. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you very much, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
Now, Laura, tell us a little bit about Booking.com so that we don't have any preconceived notion of what you actually do today.
Sure. Well, you called it right. Our mission is to make it easier for everyone to experience the world. We take this mission very seriously, and we look at the different components of that. So we want to make sure that people can travel where they want to, in the way that they want to. So we look very closely also at sustainability to make sure that there's a world worth experiencing. And the everyone in our mission means that we need to make travel very inclusive. So we look at travel from all angles and really want to make it as seamless as possible, knowing that travel is a force for good. And after the last few years of limited travel, we're very happy to see it back and the benefits coming back for those traveling and the communities they travel to.
Okay, you're in over 200 countries worldwide. You're one of the pioneers in this online booking business. Tell us a little bit about how the business has changed in the last few years and how you're helping to connect with a new generation of customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Booking is 25 years old, 26 this year, in fact. And so, yes, certainly one of the pioneers in online travel. And it really is about, a bit like for BizTech, right? It's really about connecting the points where people want to travel and where they want to travel to and making that global reach. So we were able to connect, for example, a hotel in Sydney with a consumer in London who is looking for hotels and has no idea about Australia at all, or a traveler from Washington, DC wanting to go to Thailand. So we have the ability to connect travelers to properties. So really give that reach for the properties, but also for travelers. And it's really about making it as easy as possible, as we mentioned in our mission. So we focus primarily now on mobile devices. Over half of our bookings are made through mobile devices, whether that's our app or our mobile website. And this really has been a significant shift over the last few years. Traditionally, it's been desktop searches, but now with the shift of people wanting to do things on the go. Right? I know I make my bookings when I'm in a taxi going somewhere. I've usually got all my travel booked that way, and I'm not alone in that. So I think that, we continue to focus on making it as easy as possible. And the great thing is when I hear from customers of Booking, they say the best thing about it is it's easy to use. So that's where we will continue to focus.
Now, Laura, and you alluded to this already, we obviously have experienced an unprecedented period where we didn't have the mobility that we had throughout our lives. And now we've had revenge travel, but then there's travel constraints in terms of capacity all over the world, which has resulted in basically higher prices for fares across the world. Walk us through what you're seeing in 2023 in terms of key trends in the region.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. After a period of completely unprecedented. We had no idea that travel would be taken away from us, right? And we took it so much for granted that it was a shock. And I think now as borders started to reopen, we could see in our trends the bookings would start to come immediately. So you could see as each border opened that the travel in and out would spike very fast. So we know demand is there. But we also see now what has changed is there's a different type of desire to travel. So you're right, prices are high, both in accommodations and in flights, mostly due to capacity on the flight side, which is still ramping up. But we see that there is such a demand for travel and people will prioritize it. And the surveys that we've done for the travel predictions this year, it is over 46% of travelers said, I'm going to travel just to get away. And almost 40% said, I need to travel for my own mental well-being. So while we see pressures on people, people's finances. People are feeling concerned sometimes about the macroeconomic environment, but they will prioritize travel and they will budget accordingly. So we're seeing the demand still across the entire spectrum of travel. So whether it's from budget right through to luxury, people will travel. They will just do it within their means. And we're definitely seeing that in our bookings.
Now, Laura, one of the biggest contributors to travel pre-pandemic were Chinese consumers. China has just opened up in the last couple of months, but we've not seen the surge across the region that many predicted. What are your thoughts on this, and when do you see this really coming to fruition?
I would say yet. We haven't seen it yet, but it's definitely coming. Yes, I think a number of things to think about here. Yes, we expected the floodgates to open and suddenly Chinese travelers would be everywhere. I mean, by far the biggest source market for almost every country was a Chinese traveler, certainly within Asia Pacific. If we think about markets like Thailand, Japan, Korea, Australia, even where I'm sitting right now, they were very reliant on the Chinese travelers. But I think a number of things, the fact that the borders opened very fast, there was not this planning time. So there was not the capacity for people to travel out as soon as it opened. So we saw flight capacity is not there. I mean, globally it's not there, but coming out of China, it's still 20 to 30%. We anticipate, or China have stated they would get to about 75% by the end of the year. China itself still want to maintain domestic travel. I mean, also economically, they want to keep, obviously, whatever they can spend internally within China, and I can understand that. So flight capacity, the support for domestic travel is still very much there. Passport expirations, there was a lot of passports expired over the last few years. The passport office is very busy. The visa office is very busy. So there's a lot of things holding people up. And also when the borders opened, people did get very sick. And so there was also a concern, either people were sick or taking care of sick family members. That spike is already now on the downward trend. So I think that as that also people start to feel a bit more confident to travel with an increased flight capacity, then we will start to see travelers coming out more. I think the floodgates will open, but it's just a bit slower. But certainly towards the end of the year, we will see more.
And Laura, I think one of the things I want to add is that it doesn't come out as much in the literature, but when aircraft have been in storage for as long as they have, it takes quite a while to actually get them back online. There's a finite amount of maintenance capacity on maintenance, repair, and overhaul shops. The other thing is air crew need to be recertified. So people didn't figure that into their projections and basically thought that you could just turn on the tap and people would start flying. So this is why, as you mentioned, 75% capacity only at the end of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it will take time. I mean, yes, you've got to rehire, you've got to retrain. Pilots are not current anymore. So we'd have to dust off the planes and we have to dust off our capabilities to be able to get the crew back in the air. So yeah, it's going to take a little time.
Now, Laura, I want to get to the crux of the interview where we discuss your role as a female leader and a female representation in the travel industry. Now, first of all, I want to draw attention to a very interesting fact. So the United Nations World Tourism Organization Global Report on Women in Tourism highlights that, in fact, the travel industry employs more women than any other industry, 54% of the workforce. But interestingly enough, there are only 40% of the managerial positions, less than 20% of general management roles, and only less than 8% of board positions. Now, could you shed some insights into this? Because for me, it's just quite an eye-opener.
Yeah, I mean, the amazing stats are the first ones. And you're right, I mean, some industries lend themselves more to gender diversity than others, but for us, I think that it's great to see overall a significant amount of females. But then when you can drill that down to the fact that even in an industry where we have significant amounts of women in the workplace, that the management positions are still inequitable. So it's an interesting one to see. I mean, we are seeing generally across industries there is progress being made. Women are taking more leadership positions, but like I say, in certain industries more than others, where women were more prominent in the first place. There's a lot of industries where that is not the case. I'm coming from a technology background, so I've spent the last 10 years or so with a large technology organization, and by far the female representation was much lower than it is now that I'm facing in booking, which plays nicely to your point around tourism. And actually within booking in Asia Pacific, we're 59% females, 57% of 57% of the next level managers are female. So I'm certainly very proud of where we're at in booking across Asia Pacific, but that's not the case globally yet. But over half of our workforce globally is female, but our management population is still not there yet, even though in Asia Pacific we currently are. And I'm certainly very happy to state that my direct leadership team, my directors are 50-50, and they also come with 6 different nationalities. So I'm also, diversity is required in many areas, not just in gender. But if we look across Asia Pacific, not just in the tourism industry, but overall Asia, there's only 4% of females are CEOs, only 10% are CFOs. So, and I think only 5% are on board chair positions. That's across Asia Pacific. So we have a long way to go. Overall, Singapore has the highest number, and there's 26% of female CEOs in Singapore. So that's great. Singapore has are being intentional about a lot of things. But as a region, we still have a lot of work to be done. So it's great to see it in tourism, but still, we have to be very intentional.
Could you shed some light into, and I like the idea, the stats that you delivered around Booking.com. So you can see consistently above 50% of women. Could you share your thoughts in terms of, from a company-specific perspective, what you all do to achieve those numbers from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective? And not only women, of course, it's also different ethnic groups, different nationalities, and so forth.
Yeah, it's everything, right? I mean, we talk about our mission to make it easier for everyone to experience the world, then it has to start with us. Right? We have to make sure that we have diversity within the organization so that we can explore diversity outside and we can be inclusive in everything that we do. So yes, we take it very seriously. We take it as a very intentional action to make sure that we hire equitably. We also then have support groups internally. So we have a lot of employee resource groups, our ERGs, around many different areas. So we have Be Equal for our gender diversity to make sure that we're supporting our females to attract, retain, and promote our female employees internally. We also have Be Bold, which is our support program for Be Able is our ERG for disabled travelers, or not travelers, sorry, disabled employees or those with challenges. We have a number of ERGs, so that's again an intentional support group. And then we also put programs in place. In fact, we just launched a new employee global benefits program, which gives equitable benefits across the 22 weeks of maternity or parental leave. So whether you're whether you're taking paternity leave or maternity leave, it doesn't matter. You take 22 weeks. Now that is huge, because that means that we're equitable inside the workplace, but we also give families equity at home. So if both parents can take a significant amount of time off, it means that also it's not sitting on the females during that time.
And Laura, that's a very interesting point, because so here's the thing. I always, having worked in technology for many years and never viewed women any differently from males. So whether I was hiring someone or whether it was someone I worked with, I expected the same from a female and from a male. I also expected that everyone is paid equally. So there was, and unfortunately, the reality is women do get paid a little less than men in many areas for the same job, which is unfortunate. However, this is the first time I've actually heard that a company is giving both males and females, fathers and mothers, leave to take care of their children. And I think you've got to be commended for that.
Yeah, I'm incredibly proud of it. And all the initiatives that we take are one of the reasons for me to join Booking in the first place. And then we take it very, very seriously. We also give the same amount of care days off, for example. We give grandparents leave when new babies are born. So it really is about making sure that everybody has that equity. And I know for females, when the male parent can also be home for 20 weeks, it gives me the space to go back to work. So when I say equity at work, it also gives equity at home, to give the space to continue to try to get back to the workplace, or to share the load at home, which makes a big difference. So yes, I'm incredibly proud of that. So we take inclusivity very seriously. We also have, of course, our inclusion, well-being, diversity as a team, but supported by then the ERGs that are run by the employees. So we take it from all angles to make sure that we consider it from the point of hiring right through. So yeah, a lot of things that we're intentional about.
Now, Laura, I want to focus now on you as the individual, as the leader. You're not from the travel industry, you're from the tech industry. You worked for a very large company previously. How did that shape you as a female leader in order to grow you to take on this job in a totally different industry?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, coming from the tech space, it is a male-dominated world, as you well know, Brian. And I think that it's a space where, as a female, you can take a few different approaches. One is, I'm going to blend in, so I'm going to be more masculine, maybe in my approach. I'm going to take a different way, or I'm going to try and go in, much more fierce and much more present. So I make myself not just blend in. I'm trying to be a force there. Or you take I'm going to be authentic and kind of hope that works approach. And for me, it took me a while to find my place. I know when I first joined the tech space, actually, I was first joined in sales, and one of the first things I was told was, "You're not aggressive enough for sales." It's not really you. So whether that's a female thing or not, it doesn't matter. It was a bias against. I'm quite softly spoken. I don't take an aggressive approach to really anything. But I knew that I could do sales because I knew that I was passionate about something. So that was my kind of struggle to start with, and eventually I was given the opportunity and more than proved that I'm capable of sales without having an aggressive approach to it. So then I went through this kind of, as I was trying to grow my career and move into the management positions and climb up the ladder, I really wasn't sure where my place was to start with. And I really, in the end, I found through aspiring leader that I saw within the organization, who said, you know what, it's best to be authentically you, whatever that is. If you are very feminine, be very feminine. If you're not, if you're very casual, be very casual. However your approach is, be authentically you, because first of all, it's exhausting to be anybody else. But that way you can, you're much stronger in that position. And it was really that was kind of eye-opening for me. And I stopped trying to be anybody else. And I've been that approach ever since. And it's been, I'm fortunate that it's worked for me in the spaces that I've been. And I find in Booking.com, I'm even more authentically myself than I've ever been. And it's a great place to be. And I love the fact that I'm now able to inspire others to do the same.
And Laura, you alluded to one other thing as well. It's about people having an influence in turning points in your life. Definitely. And that also comes from mentorship. How important has that been for you in your journey as a female leader?
It's been huge, and not necessarily maybe in the way that you think, because I didn't have those mentors to start with, is where I really struggled. And it was only really later in my career that I started to realize the benefit of mentorship and sponsorship. I think that's the other area. And I think as a female leader now, I'm very conscious to make sure that I am mentoring, and I mentor a number of our younger aspiring females within the organization. But also I will make sure, and I tell all of my female leaders and male leaders who are allies, that we need to make sure we also sponsor our teams and give them the visibility and the space. And that's our role too. So I would say my journey with mentorship came later, but now realizing the value of it and sponsorship, that I will make sure to do that. And I think that is our, it's not an obligation, it's an expectation that I would have of myself, but also of my leaders around me, to make sure that they're also doing the same. That's the way that we will continue to inspire others.
Now, Laura, one of the key things that is often a dilemma for women is when they come to turning points in their, one key turning point, it's when it's time to have children. What advice would you give women who are perhaps just about to have their first child in terms of planning their careers moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's individual for everybody. I think they should not feel that it's a choice of one or the other. They should feel comfortable to say, I may want to pause. Maybe I want to pause. Maybe I want to be straight back in the workplace as soon as I can. Maybe I want to take a longer time. Maybe I want to take my foot off the gas just a little bit because my focus and attention will be here. But it's not a choice of, do I have a family? Do I have a career? That should not, I mean, it can be an intentional choice. You can choose, I want to now step out of the workplace, or I want to pursue a rapid career. But for me, I wouldn't want it to be a choice. I want it to be intentional about how much time I spend where, and workplaces should support that. Managers should support that. And for me, it's very much that we have to do that. I want to make sure all of the women in my teams that want to have a family don't feel at all that that means they have to step back, or be held back in any way, shape, or form. And again, that's my expectation of all of the managers that I have, that they treat everybody exactly the same way too. We don't want anybody to think that they should make that choice, because it's difficult.
Absolutely. Now, Laura, it's been a fascinating conversation, but before we leave, I want to ask you one very important question. Because of your background and the organization that you work for, obviously Booking.com is ahead of the curve in terms of how they deal with equity and diversity and inclusion. What advice would you like to leave our audience with in terms of CEOs, board members, and staff? What should be some of the best practices that they should be looking at doing?
I think there's a few things that we need to be doing as organizations. One is we need to be incredibly intentional about it. So build it into your policies. There's always this discussion, should we KPI, for example, getting females into the workforce? Do we need to set ourselves targets for women in management? And I would love to say no, but the reality is, if you're very far away from where you would like to be or where we need you to be, then you will have to do those things. And that's not to say we have the wrong people in the wrong roles. It's really about, we have to make a change, and it starts with governance. It starts with policies within an organization. The second is lead by example. I'm in a very fortunate position that I'm the first female in the role I'm in now. I was the first in the last 2 roles I've had, and therefore I feel that that's a luxurious position for me to continue to inspire others. And as any female leader or an ally, make sure that we also continue to sponsor, mentor, empower all of our aspiring leaders, but certainly our females, give them the space to do it. And then the third is the employee resource groups. I think that that is something that is so valuable, regardless of what that resource does for you. For us, like I say, the Be Equal resource group is a powerhouse for our females who are looking for support and sponsorship. And actually our group now, they actually made some changes. So they made a recommendation because they look at it from a different perspective than as a business. We've got our IDBW team, but that's one way of looking at it. But the resource group actually look at it from the support the business. So they actually made a change in the business where 2 weeks before somebody returns from parental leave, that the manager is triggered to remind them they're coming back. So the manager then gets in touch with them just to say, welcome back. We start planning and preparing for it, and to give ease to that person that's coming back. So that was something that came from the resource group that wasn't there in place before, and has made a massive difference to those that have been out for a while and are preparing to come back. So
and I can see that, Laura, and I want to interrupt you because I think that's such a proactive thing to do, because it affects people in 2 ways. One, from an inclusion standpoint, you're reintegrating your employee back into the company. But also from a management standpoint, the moment the person hits the office, that person is hitting if the re-onboarding is done correctly, that person is productive from day one. She or he is not spending time trying to figure out how things work now.
Exactly. It works both ways. So yeah, and that's just one example of what the Be Equal ERG were able to put into place, recommend and put into place. So yeah, these 3 things, I think, kind of governance and policy within an organization. Make sure that we kind of walk the talk, we continue to empower, inspire, and employee resource groups. If you have the ability to do it, let's get those set up. So they would be my recommendations.
Fantastic. Laura, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate it.
We've been speaking to Laura Houldsworth, Managing Director, Asia Pacific at Booking.com. I'm Brian Fernandez, and you've been watching and listening to BizTech's Women in Leadership show. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.